of all, pay homage to the Supreme Buddha. Say Namo Tassa 3 times all together.
Tassa bhagavato arahato
Devito arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. First of all, sorry for the delay. Okay. Today that we are going to start a new talk series, a discussion series. It's about Four Noble Truths. So I suggest you, if you can find this book, I think everyone can see me. This is Four Noble Truths, which was written by Most Venerable Rerukani Chandamimala Mahanayaka Thero, and this was translate one. This was translated by Viranjiva Virakkodi, and if you can find, this is going to be helpful to understand. So what I'm going to do here in this lecture series is, I'm not going to read the book from the beginning. Instead, I chose the key points, and I'm going to elaborate them and then discuss. So anything to clarify here? Okay. Okay. So then let's start our Dhamma discussion. So we all know as Buddhists that the Four Noble Truths is one of the fundamental teachings of the Supreme Buddha. And in Buddhist causality, there are 3 steps. Number 1 is Four Noble Truths. Then, dependent origination, paticca. Then there are 24 causalities, conditions. So the Four Noble Truths is the comparatively, I would say, the lowest dependent origination or causality, which is explained in Buddhist teachings. So in this book, the very first paragraph, it says that why do the Buddhas appear in the world? We all know as Buddhists, the appearance of the Buddhas is incredibly rare, and it's not accidental as well. So what's the main purpose of appearance of the Buddhas in the world? The main purpose of the appearance of the Buddhas in the world is to help the people, the beings, to realize or comprehend Four Noble Truths. Because beings in the world, they suffer. The reason is that they have not penetrated the Four Noble Truths. That's why the beings are suffering. So the Buddhas appear in the world with the sole purpose of helping others, helping those who are entangled in this ocean of lives and death, which is called samsara. So we know that the Buddha, the Siddhartha Gautama Buddha, that he had the chance to end the suffering in one of the previous Buddha's time. It was Dipankara Buddha, and in front of him that if he wanted, that he could end the suffering. He was able to comprehend the Four Noble Truths. But why he didn't do that, he skipped that chance because that he thought it's not fair. He was such a person that he thought like it's not fair to end the suffering alone. And he wanted to help more people who are entangled in the life circles, in the samsara. So he thought not to end the suffering in front of the Dipankara Buddha. Instead, what he did was he sacrificed his chance. And if you look at the human history, that I think that is maybe one of the, maybe the best sacrifice that someone can do. So he did it to help the beings, help for us. So after sacrificing, after skipping that, the golden opportunity that he had, he entered into the samsara, and he fulfilled the virtues that we all know, the paramis, the perfections, the 10 paramis that he had to fulfill in the long run, the millions and millions of lives that he had to practice those virtues. So those kind of sacrifice, cannot do by a normal person. You need to be a very, very special and determined person. So he was able to do that in the long period of samsara that he had. He fulfilled all the perfections, and at the end that he was able to comprehend the Four Noble Truths. So the main purpose of appearance of the Buddhas in the world is to teach us, to teach the beings who have no idea about the samsara and about the life and death and all these. So the main purpose of the appearance of the Buddha is to help other people to comprehend the Four Noble Truths. That's the summary of the largest paragraph in this particular book. So then, the next page, I would summarize what it says. Can anyone reach Nibbana without realizing Four Noble Truths? That's the simple idea it brings in the second paragraph. So it says that no one can reach the Nibbana without realizing the Noble Truths. Without realizing, without comprehending the suffering and its true cause, that nobody can reach the Nibbana or end the suffering. There's a simile in this book to emphasize the inability to reach Nibbana without realizing the Noble Truths. So it says, let me read this simple, small simile. As someone's proposition that he could bring water in a corn made of kihiri leaves, asoka leaves, nelli leaves, or palm leaves cannot be accomplished. So is a statement of a person saying that he would transcend suffering without comprehending the truths of suffering, cause of suffering, end of suffering, path leading to the end of suffering. So simply it says, if I say in very, very simple manner, simple way, that if someone says, okay, I will bring water from a stainer, strainer, but nobody can bring water from a strainer. Exactly similar idea it says here. If someone make a corn with small leaves, so he cannot bring water from that small corn. So exactly like that, it's impossible to end the suffering without realizing the Four Noble Truths. That's the second point that I have to explain here. Then the third point that I have chosen from this book is the importance of realizing the Four Noble Truths. There are two similes in this key point to emphasize the importance of Four Noble Truths. So, what is the importance of realizing Four Noble Truths? And who can realize the Four Noble Truths? So, as we all know, the Four Noble Truths can be realized, fully can be realized by a Supreme Buddha. And then I think you know that you have heard about a Pacceka Buddha. There are some people called Pacceka Buddha or separate Buddha, or it is translated as silent Buddha. They appear in the world where there are no Sammasambuddhas. The difference between Sammasambuddha and Pacceka Buddha is that the Pacceka Buddha cannot teach others what they have realized. They may be able to explain what is a good, what is a bad, something like that. They are unable to teach the Four Noble Truths. But the Sammasambuddha, we know that the Sammasambuddha can teach others as well. And he's special in that skill, because when he teaches someone, he can read their capabilities as well, and what is the way that they can understand the Four Noble Truths. And then the other person is Arahanta. Arahanta needs to follow or listen from Sammasambuddha or follower of Sammasambuddha. Only then he can, a normal person, I mean, can realize the Four Noble Truths. Then what is the importance of realizing the Four Noble Truths? And we know that before that the Sotapanna, the stream enterer, also experience the Four Noble Truths. Then the second noble person, Sakadagami, once returning, and Anagami, non-returner. They are also experience Four Noble Truths partially until they reach Nirvana or the Nibbana. The importance of the realizing Four Noble Truths is very important to understand. Because as I mentioned earlier, if anyone has not penetrated or reached the Four Noble Truths, he is bound to future suffering. Here it explains about the Sotapanna noble person and how much that he eliminated the suffering. So there is a simile to emphasize that. Let me read the simple simile to you. I think most of you may have heard the simile. Once the Lord, the Buddha, took some soil onto one of his toenails and addressed the disciples. Monks, said he, What is huge, O monks? The soil on my toenail or soil on this earth? The monks replied that the soil on the toenail of the Blessed One was far, far smaller in amount, and corresponding to the soil on earth was massive. The soil on the Blessed One's toenail was not even 1,000, no 100,000, no yet 100, 10, 100,000 parts. On hearing the judgment of the disciples, the Blessed One spoke thus: Monks, the amount of sorrow and suffering obliterated by the Sotapanna is immense. The residual dukkha is absolutely little. This is not 100, 1,000, nor 1,000,000 part of the obliterated dukkha. In other words, the obliterated dukkha is as vast as amount of soil on earth. So this explains how and the amount the Sotapanna noble person eradicated the suffering. So when someone hears this, he may think sometimes, okay, the Sotapanna, the noble person, eradicated the suffering that he had faced in the past. But here, one of the key points that we should pay attention is that the Sotapanna, the simile here mentioned, the Sotapanna eliminated, they eradicated the suffering that he was bound to face in the future. Because the future births that remain only 7. So that's why it explains like the suffering is in the future. It's not about in the past. We know that the Sotapanna, the maximum births that he can get only 7, up to 7. So up to 7, but he's bound to get rebirth and the lamentation and all other suffering that he's bound to face. So in the Buddhist teachings, it's very important to understand, as long as you have the causes, which means that you are bound to its results. It doesn't matter whether it is arising or not. If as long as you have the causes, for an example, like craving, ignorance, you are bound to future suffering. So what the Sotapanna has eradicated here is the future suffering. So he had only 7 lives maximum. So the suffering that he eradicated here, as in this simile mentioned, that only remained like the soil on his toenail, and the suffering that he eradicated or eliminated, suffering is like the soil on the earth. So I think that you get what I'm trying to emphasize here. Do you understand what I'm trying to explain here? So the suffering that he eliminated is compared here with this soil simile, that he eliminated the suffering that he had bound to face in the future. So it is one of the fundamental teachings in Theravada Buddhism. So which means like, if you are not eradicated the causes, which means you are bound to face a future suffering, and it is regarded as, even though it is not arisen yet, the future suffering, you can regard as it is already arisen. It is says in Sinhalese, Anuppanna uppanna. Anuppanna uppanna means it is not arisen yet, but you can consider it is as arisen because you have the causes. Until you have the causes, you are bound to the future suffering. It doesn't matter whether it is arisen or not, but it's going to be arisen. It's going to arise since that you have the causes. So the Sotapanna eradicated the suffering that he had faced in the future. So that's what the first simile explains here, the soil simile. So then again, there is a stanza which is included in Dhammapada, Patavya ekarajjena saggassa gamanena va sabba lokadipacchena sotapatti palanga. It is also emphasizes that the importance of realizing the Four Noble Truths. So I think that you may have heard the story. This stanza preached by the Buddha because of a lay follower. I think you know Anathapindika Siddhatuma, one of the main lay followers of the Buddhism. And the Buddha preached this over his son. Anathapindika Siddhatuma had a son called Kala. And he was not interested in practicing spirituality, even though his father has dedicated his life to Buddhism. His son was not interested in. So the millionaire Anathapindika, he was thinking how he can help his son. So what he did was he suggested him that he could give some money if you can go to the monastery and observe Sil. So first day that he gave him like 100 kahapana to go to a monastery and observe Sil, then he did that. Then second day that the Anathapindika, the father, said, okay, now you go and observe Sil, and I'll give you 1,000 kahapana and learn a stanza. That's a assignment that he gave to his son. Then the second day that he went to the monastery and he was he just wanted to learn a stanza to get 1,000 kahapana, but the Buddha knew his thoughts. So Buddha determined and not to be able to learn the stanza, but to understand the stanza. So Buddha made him realize the Four Noble Truths and he became Sotapanna. So when then he came to house with the Buddha, and that the Siddhatuma, or the Anepinda Siddhatuma, that he knew that the son was quite special with his appearance. And then the Buddha, actually he tried to give the money in front of the Buddha. And he was embarrassed by the father, and then Buddha explained this stanza. Patavya ekarajjena saggassa gamanena sabbaloka dipacchena sotapatti palanga. becoming Sotapanna is more important than becoming a universal monarchy. Sakpiti Raja. In Buddhist teaching, there's a concept of Sakpiti Raja, a universal monarchy. And Saggasagamana, I think you know that there are 26 heavenly realms. So it is even more important to understand, comprehend the Four Noble Truths than going to heavens. Because if you become a universal monarchy, or if you go to heaven, one of heavenly realms, it's impermanent. It's only for some time. And after that, you will have to come to human birth, or even lower realms like animal realm, hell realm. So you can go any of those bad places. Doesn't matter you become universal monarchy or go to heavenly realm. So that's why it is explained in this stanza. It is way more important to realize the Four Noble Truths than going to heaven or becoming universal monarchies. Anything to clarify that what I've been talking here?
Bhante?
Yes.
Yeah. By realizing the Four Noble, Sotapanna realizing the Four Noble Truths,
Yes.
still that person can't attain Sakadagami or Anagami. Is that right? Even if the Sotapanna realizes the Four Noble Truths?
Yes, he is capable of realizing or penetrating the Four Noble Truths fully in later stages.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
What happened in the when he becomes Sotapanna, he established there. He's not going back.
Yes, yeah. But not fully. Is that right? Not realize the Four Noble Truths fully?
Yes, we can say fully, but that he is stable there.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. But still he has to...
yes, he has to work.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that is... yeah, so as a Sotapanna, he has still got rid of the Silabbata Paramasa, Sakkaya Ditthi Silabbata Paramasa and Vichikicha only. So
yes.
he has to get rid of the other
Of
fetters.
course.
Yeah, right.
He the first, they're called bonds. First three bonds that he
Bond. Yeah.
eradicated. Yes. Samyojana.
Yeah. Thank you, Bhante.
It's okay. Okay. If not, if you don't have anything to clarify, that we can move on. Okay. Then in this book, 22nd page, it explains the way one should try to comprehend the Four Noble Truths. How someone should put effort to realize the Four Noble Truths with a simile. Let me read the simile. When worn clothes or head catches fire, what will at most befall a person is death. From only once existed fire, one would not embrace death 7, 8, or 12 times. But on the other hand, For one who has not realized the Four Noble Truths, deaths that would befall him in samsara could be immense, as to be rendered uncountable. Inasmuch as one realizes the Four Noble Truths by only dying once, the innumerable deaths that would come to him samsara would cease. In other words, the one would be free, released from recurrent wandering in wheels of birth and death. It is for this very reason the Blessed One had said that even when one had one's head or worn clothing is aflame, still one should strive to grasp the Four Noble Truths. So it says, if somebody got fire on his head or clothes, what is the best thing to do? So then the monk said, extinguish the fire, the best thing to do. But the Buddha said was like, try to, if he tries to penetrate the Four Noble Truths, it's more worth, because when you get caught into fire, you will die only once. But if you don't realize the Four Noble Truths, which means that you will have to die in the future in so many times. So in this simile, the Buddha tries to emphasize the importance of realizing the Four Noble Truths. Then again, there's another simile as well. One day, the Blessed One addressed his community of disciples thus, O bhikkhus, if a person goes to another person who has 100-year lifespan and tells him that every day, whenever I come to you, you will be pierced 100 times with a pointed iron staff in the morning, evening, and night, respectively, for continuous 100 years. So much so that at the end of the 100th year, you shall realize the Four Noble Truths. Then the victim of the pointed iron staff should agree and give his consent. Why should the victim give assent? In samsara, which is beginningless and endless, each and everyone has received innumerable piercing from pointed iron staffs, swords and daggers. Yet I would not emphasize that anyone should grasp the Four Noble Truths by suffering amidst happiness and well-being. Should you consume the Four Noble Truths. It also explained the importance of realizing the Four Noble Truths. Then, again, there's a point that I have chosen to talk here. What is the best thing that you can do to a beloved one or someone that you care about? Maybe your parents or partners or children. It says here that the best thing that you can do to someone that you have sympathy over is to help them to realize the Four Noble Truths. That is the best help that you can do to someone, because as we've discussed so far, since that we have not realized the Four Noble Truths, that we are bound to immense future suffering that is unfathomable amount of suffering that we are bound in the future. We are means those who have not realized the Four Noble Truths, at least as Sotapanna. So that's why it is emphasized by the Buddha as what is the best help that you can do to someone that you love or care about, to teach the Four Noble Truths. Then someone may argue, okay, what is the point that if we do not fully realize? So is it important to just discuss? Yes, of course. The knowledge that we gain here is definitely going to be helpful one day to penetrate the Four Noble Truths. So this is the best thing that we can do while we have these noble teachings, and while we have the access to the teachings and the time as well. Because in the past that we have done so many things, and almost everything that we have done in the past as well. So as it mentioned here, that we had millions and millions of past lives. So in all these lives that we have done all the things, but the most important thing is that what we haven't done is to penetrate the Four Noble Truths, or comprehend the Four Noble Truths. That's why we are today here. So it's about our responsibility to learn the Four Noble Truths and try to help others as well to learn and understand what's the Four Noble Truths. In order to do that, it'll be helpful if you can study the basic Abhidhamma. The basic Abhidhamma, when you learn basic Abhidhamma, it'll be very, very helpful to understand the Four Noble Truths, because the Four Noble Truths is nothing than something, the ultimate realities that we've learned in Abhidhamma. So when we learn Abhidhamma, that we can easily, divide and clarify into the ultimate realities, then we can understand quite easily the Four Noble Truths. So then it says, the Four Noble Truths that we should realize within us, that is also an important point. The Noble Truths is not something that we have to reach somewhere else. The Noble Truth of suffering is within us. It's not outside somewhere. It is within us. Sankittena panchupadana khandha dukkha. The five aggregates is a suffering. So it's not somewhere else. It is within us. So we have to understand what is the five aggregates, what is the suffering. Then the cause of suffering. We know that the cause of suffering, according to the Four Noble Truths, is the craving. The craving is not something in somewhere. It arises within us. So we've learned in Abhidhamma the Lobha Mula Chittas, greed-rooted the consciousnesses. The greed-rooted consciousnesses that we can find the Lobha. Lobha is the root cause of suffering. As long as you have the Lobha, you have the greed, you have the craving, you are bound to future suffering. You are bound to future birth, which is unfathomable. Unquantifiable times, amounts of times that we are bound to get rebirth and all the other suffering. Since you have these, all these defilements, mainly with craving. So that is why, and the the comprehending the nirvana is also that we should do within us. Yes, it is an ultimate reality that is not existing within us, the nirvana, but we have to realize the Four Noble, the nirvana, with the magga and palachittas. We know the magga chitta and palachitta, we have learned them. So Sovan marga, Sotapatti magga path consciousness, and fruit consciousness, marga chitta and palachitta. Like that, the four path consciousnesses and four fruit or result consciousnesses that we can experience the Nibbana. That's how you can comprehend the Four Noble Truths. And most importantly, the path. Path, when we hear path, the way leading to the end of suffering, someone may think, okay, path should be somewhere else. No, path is also within us. Path doesn't mean anything, but path means that the eight cetasikas that we learn, like Samma Ditti Panya, Samma Sankappa Vitakka, that we learn in Abhidhamma as cetasikas, like that, that we should develop the 8 factors, which is called path, within us. When we practice wholesome activities like learning the teachings, or even when we do some righteous work, maybe for lay people, maybe living or whatever, when you do it, when you do right thing, you can develop those path factors. But the more important thing is to, when you learn the teachings, when you practice the teachings, those are the ways that we can develop the path factors which are helpful to realize the Four Noble Truths. And that's what we are doing right now. When we learn the teachings, we, in some way that we can say, we practice the Eightfold Path, because we develop the path factors when we practice wholesome activities like listening to the teachings or studying the teachings, which means you strengthen your right view. Right view means the panya, the very first path factor. So like that, all these, the Four Noble Truths are within us. It's not somewhere else that we have to practice. That's why the Buddha said that I'm only a guide, one who shows the path. Akkataro tatagata. Tumhi kichanga. You are the one who have to do the job. And even the Buddhas cannot do much about that. What he can do is he can teach. But if we have developed the qualifications, like I think you may have heard in the Buddha's time, that sometimes he go and find people to preach, because they had done their homework. They had qualified to listen from the Buddha and understand the teachings. So those are the ones that the Buddha go and find and teach them. And otherwise, unless otherwise that he meet someone, he will not teach. So that's why the best thing that we can do right now is to put an effort to learn these noble teachings, noble truths, which was probably maybe that we have not learned in the past. So the Four Noble Truths are within us, and that we have to comprehend them within us. And lastly, there are the two similes that emphasizes how difficult to penetrate the Four Noble Truths, how difficult to realize the Four Noble Truths. Let me read the similes. Though the Four Noble Truths seems manifest visibly closer to us, yet to find it out and comprehend it in all its dimensions is absolutely formidable. That this fact is so, the Blessed One showed when Ananda by a parable. Once in Besali, while going his begging round with arms bowl in hand, Venerable Ananda saw the Lichavi princess practicing arrow targeting and especially noticed how princess shot forth arrows so accurately to pass through a keyhole. When Venerable Ananda got back to the temple, he made known to the Blessed One this fact. That the Lord said, Ananda, of targeting an arrow through a keyhole and shooting with horse skin torn into 7 to a corner of a piece of horse skin targeted 210 feet away, which task is more difficult and daunting? Then Ananda said, Lord, blessed one, shooting with the torn into 7 horse skin. Actually, the Sinhalese book says like horse, the hair. Here it says skin. The 7 horse skin to the corner of a piece of a horse skin is more difficult. Whereupon the Blessed One reacted, Ananda, the comprehension of dukkha, cause of dukkha, the eradicating the dukkha, the way, the path leading to the nibbana, is even harder than shooting a thorn into 7 horse skin to the piece of horse skin. Thus, according to these examples, one should learn the daunting nature of gaining a penetrative understanding of the Four Noble Truths. So it shows how difficult to penetrate the Four Noble Truths. Simply, it says like setting an arrow through a door hole and taking a horse hair and splitting into 7, and one of those parts, if someone use as an arrow to set forth into 210 feet, what is more difficult? So according to these two similes, the second one is even we can't, think about. So it's incredibly difficult. So the hair of a horse is even very, very thin. How someone can make it into 7 pieces and use one as an arrow to set forth. So somehow what this tries to explain is the difficulty or the daunting task to penetrate the Four Noble Truths. So it's incredibly difficult to penetrate Four Noble Truths. In order to understand, comprehend Four Noble Truths, someone has to have enormous effort and determination and sacrifice to practice the mentality to understand the Four Noble Truths. Unless otherwise, it's incredibly difficult. So that's what it explains the difficulty to penetrate the Four Noble Truths. So, do you need any explanation, or that we can do a discussion now about what we have discussed so far? Or anything that you can suggest about the discussion, or suggestion, any question, or anything to add?
Bhante, the word suffering,
Yes.
in the common use, is always in the negative context. But in life, it's not always negative. So the word dukkha actually doesn't seem to translate to our common understanding of suffering in
Of course,
this.
yes, suffering is always here misleading. Even in Sinhalese, we say dukkha. It's very, very deep phenomena, the suffering is. But what we understand when we hear suffering or dukkha, something very, very, shallow, like I was suffering from fever, something like that. But this suffering is incredibly deep. You have to have the deep knowledge to realize this suffering. Fully, like to be sotapanna, that's how you realize the suffering. Before
That's at a lay level, Bhante, how can we can't realize it?
Yeah.
Is there a better way to understand how, like, the pleasant things we experience in our life, that they also are actually part of dukkha?
Actually, not part of dukkha. If we look at the whole spectrum, like as a whole, for an example, like you may have heard that sankicchena panchapadana khandha dukkha. That's quite deep statement there, because when someone hear this, yes, of course, someone can question like, oh, if there's no then happiness, right? Yes, of course, there is happiness. If we divide these five aggregates, we know that the aggregates of form, aggregates of feeling, then aggregates of perception, aggregates of mental factors, and aggregates of consciousness. There are five. So the happy feeling, what we find here is in the second aggregates of feelings. We find pleasant feeling, unpleasant feeling, and neutral feeling. So the world, maybe almost everyone who don't have idea about the teachings may think suffering is unpleasant feeling, right? Happiness is pleasant feeling. Right? What about the others? How a matter of form can be suffering, right? So that's why I said that in whole spectrum, if we take in the deeper level, so the being is nothing but these five aggregates, we know that. But we are deceived. We think suffering is this unpleasant feeling. Happiness is pleasant feeling. But how pleasant feeling can be included as suffering? Because Buddhism does not reject the happiness, right? It explains happiness and even teaches how you can be happy. But we have to understand the teachings, how this can be suffering. An example, in sutras it says, no one would attach with the things if there is no happiness. Of course there is happiness. And no one would detach if there is no consequences of attachment. That's why wise people, they compare these two things. You can be happy by attaching with the things, and you can be happy with actually detaching from the pleasant things as well. So we have to understand these, the 5 aggregates. It is very deep, and as we've deceived that the happiness just that we understand as pleasant feeling. It's not so. According to the teachings of the Buddha, if you understand these 5 aggregates as they are, which means you experience the happiness, which means Nibbana. In the Nibbana, there's no suffering because it's not conditioned. The 5 aggregates is always conditioned. And let me add something more to understand a little bit about how the aggregates are suffering. For an example, like form, rupa. How can rupa explain as suffering? Yes, we understand the feeling, it's okay, right? But what about the form? What about the matter? It says that you have to face suffering or unpleasant feelings due to the matter. For example, let's imagine someone hit you. You feel unpleasant feeling. And this body, to maintain this rupa, the body, patavi, and all this body, that you have to do enormous things. You have to do a lot of works to maintain the body, maintain the rupa. And when we face illnesses and all these, and most importantly, the nature of impermanence. That's why the rupa is a reason for suffering. Rupa is a reason for physical suffering and mental suffering. In this way that we have to contemplate about all the 5 aggregates. Yes. Until we fully realize, as I mentioned earlier, that we have to learn these things. So this knowledge, by learning the Noble Truths, is definitely going to be helpful, because if you don't have at least this knowledge, how can you move forward? How can you go forward? It's very important to understand, even at the surface level, or as a knowledge, as a subject. Only then you can think quite deeply about the suffering and about the importance of learning the Four Noble Truths. Am I going too fast? Because I just picked up
It's
some
all
key points.
nice. No, it's good.
I just picked up some key points and I was explaining them. So I realized even in Sinhalese class, I was reading too much.
So this space is good, Bhante. We can digest what is being said.
These similes seems like a little bit difficult to understand because that what we used to think is with examples in today's yeah, so it's quite difficult to understand sometimes.
Many of the or the similes in Buddhism, because they are from a very ancient time,
Yes,
it's difficult for us to relate to it closely.
relate to it just because the similes were chosen from at that
Good
time.
also.
Yeah.
But it just shows how difficult it is. That's
Yeah.
the point that Buddha is trying to make, is that.
Yes. Yeah, if we study, then I mean the simile, when we study the simile, it makes sense.
Yeah. Bhante, so studying and realizing are two different things completely, isn't it?
Of course, but studying is the first step that you had to put. That is called in Pali paratogosa pratyaya. Without paratogosa pratyaya, unless Buddha or Pacceka Buddha, you can't comprehend the Four Noble Truths. Paratogosa pratyaya means listening to the teachings.
But
So
that has limitations, no, Bhante, because your understanding by listening sort of stops at some point, no?
what do you mean by stop at point?
Because once you have listened and you have understood the part that has been spoken, then how do you take that learning further into a realization?
You have to have done your homework. For an example, like Sariputta. Right, you know about Sariputta. He is the second, I mean, if I say like intelligent person in the Buddhist dispensation after the Buddha. Right? He had to listen to somebody. So he listened to Assaji, Venerable Assaji. Only then he was able to realize the Noble Truths. So the thing is that there's something that we have to do. I mean, if we are capable enough, if we in simple terms, I've always said, like, if we have done our homework, we could do that. So the thing is with us, I mean, when we listen to someone, so if we have developed they are called like Indriya Dharma, the faculties, like Saddha, Virya, Sati, Samadhi, Prajna. When we develop these 5 faculties, only then we can realize. So it's not something lacking in the teachings, it's something lacking in us. So that's why it's important to listening and learning the teachings.
develop those 5 faculties.
Of
You
course,
said,
that's what we are doing right now.
yeah, so that is, by learning,
Yes,
learning
some
and
way.
learning, developing Shraddha, Virya,
We have to have all these when we do this, because you see only 5. You have to have a pretty good effort in. I mean, otherwise you could have watch a movie or enjoy or doing something, but you sacrifice that you come here, so you have to have put some effort, otherwise you can't.
Yeah, that's Virya, yes, Sati. Yeah.
Very sati samadhi prajna.
Prajna,
Obviously, you develop prajna when you learn this.
yeah, fine.
But prajna, Bhante, is not is how do you explain what prajna is?
Prajna is twofold. Prajna is twofold. Worldly prajna, panya, which means about 10 factors. Then the other one is the transcendental panya, which means lokuttara panya.
Laukika Lokottara.
Laukika lokuttara. So Laukika Panya means, I think you know that Atti Dinnang, Atti Jittang, or something like 10 factors that you have to develop the understanding. Do you have idea about those factors, Mahindavan? The number one is to understand the dana. Atti Dinnang means understanding about dana, the benefits of dana and importance of practicing dana. Then there are other two, Atti Dinnang, Atti Jittang, Atti Hutang. Jitta means the huge, the massive pujas. Sometimes we see some monks and some people do massive pujas to Chaitya and something like that. So understanding that it has benefits is also one of the factors of 10 right understandings. Number 3 is Attihutang, sending gifts to monks and those who practice spirituality has benefits. Then number 4 is Kamma, about karma, understanding about karma. Attisukata dukkatanam kammanam phalam vipaka. When you do something good, you can get good results. And when you do something bad, you get bad results. Understanding about how karma works. Then Atti ayang loko, Atti paro loko, which means beings come to this world and beings go from this world, which means simply rebirth, understanding rebirth. Then understand about parents, Atti mata, Atti pita. It's also developing the panya, the worldly panya. Then Attisatta opapatika. Opapatika means spontaneously being born, spontaneously born beings, like devas and like hell beings are born spontaneously. They're not conceived in mother's womb or something. So understanding that and understanding about the Buddhas. Time to time, there are some special beings appear in the world like Buddhas. Understand the Four Noble Truths and teach others. So these factors are mentioned as the worldly panya. When you develop, when you increase your understanding about these factors, is called the worldly panya. Panya simply means you understand as it as it is.
It is.
Yes. So it's very important to understand about these 10 factors. Only then you can go forward in the Buddhist spiritual path. So if you don't understand, or if you don't trust on these, it's very difficult to move on in the Buddhist spiritual path. For example, like if you don't understand the importance of dana, if you don't agree, so you stop there.
Mm.
It's like that. In karma, if you don't understand karma, if you don't believe rebirth, there's no way to practice the Buddhist teachings. So you have to understand, you have to improve, you have to develop the understanding about these 10 factors to develop your worldly panya.
But it's the same as the Laukika Sammaditya?
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So Laukika Sammaditya is prajna.
Yes,
It's
it is
one form of prajna.
form
Is
of
that right?
panya. Yes. Panya is many folds in the teachings.
Yeah.
Yes.
So 10 factors.
I
So
think later we will discuss in this book about 10 in the right view. Yes, the right view that we discuss.
So Bhante, I have another question.
Yes.
So at Sotapanna level, they have attained the Lokottara Panya?
Yes,
Have they?
yes. When the Sotapatti Magga Chitta rise in there,
Yeah.
which means in that particular consciousness, there are eightfold factors. They are called Lokottara.
Yeah.
Yes. The Chitta and the Chaitasikas, the mental factors, the both.
Mhm.
That's the very first time you generate those the Lokottara Dhamma.
At Sotapanna level.
Yes, the Sotapanna Magga Chitta and Phala Chitta.
Malachitta, yeah. Yeah.
That's the very first time you generate the transcendental factors in your Chitta Santana or within you.
Yeah. Also, Bhante, I have another questions. So, to attain Sotapanna, have they got to fulfill the 10 paramita? Or how does
Yes,
paramita tie in with the...
yes, paramita. There's a way that someone who has a wish to attain arahanthood, we know that he has to practice paramita in 10 ways.
Yes.
The very last stage, I would say, like, and if someone wants to penetrate the Four Noble Truths at the level of Pacceka Buddha,
Yeah.
he has to practice each one of paramis in 2 ways.
Okay.
Yes, for Samma Sambuddha, he has to practice the paramis in 3 ways, which means the 30 ways, 10 perfections in 30 ways. The Samma Sambuddha, for Pacceka Buddha in 20 ways, and Arahanta Buddha 10 ways. For an example, like when you practice dana,
Yeah.
you have to practice dana. You have to only give, offer the material things. Then for Pacceka Buddha, he has to give body parts as well.
Okay.
And for Samma Sambuddha, he has to give the life. Give the life means not just giving life. When he practices those paramis, he has to even put his life on the line. Something like that. So, for your question that we do not know exactly whether we have fulfilled our paramis or not, but it's not something somewhere, I mean, how to say that, it's not something separate from our practices, the paramis.
Yeah.
It's always in our practices. So the best thing that we can test whether our paramis are fulfilled is to put an effort.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you realize the Four Noble Truths.
Yeah. So by the time a person attains Sotapanna, he or she, that person may not have completed the parami. Or how does the parami tie in with?
Yeah, he should accomplish the paramis, otherwise he won't be able to be Sotapanna.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
Those also ties with the Indriya Dharma, the faculties.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
The parami is fully accomplished when you reach the Arahant level.
Yeah.
Yes. Parami and Indriya Dharma and all the spiritual qualities that we are supposed to.
So with parami, there is parami, upaparami, and
Paramatta parami.
paramatta parami. Yeah. So only Samma Sambuddha completes all three of them, or the 30 of them. Yeah.
30 of them, yes. Any other questions or any points to elaborate? We have a little more time, like 5-10 minutes that we can get. Yeah, this book was written based on Abhidhamma knowledge. So when you read and study this book, if you have Abhidhamma basic knowledge, be very, very helpful. It doesn't mean that others, should not do this, but everyone should try to learn. But those who have studied Abhidhamma will find pretty easier to study.
Bhante, who was the author? You said it was the
Perupani
Chandavimala, but translated by?
It's the name. Viranjiva Veerakkodi.
Viranjiva, okay.
You can find this from, I think, Buddhist Cultural Center in Sri Lanka.
Yeah.
Next time that we can discuss about two modes of discourse and the Prajnapti and Paramartha. And we are going to wind up our Dhamma session. I think you learned something that I tried my best to convey. Okay, then today by discussing Dhamma that we all generated enormous amounts of wholesome thoughts. So let's transfer these merits to our departed ones. Idammi ñāti hotu sukitā hontu ñāta. Idammi ñāti nām hotu sukitā hontu ñāta. Idammi ñāti nām hotu sukitā hontu ñāta. Let's share the merit to the divine beings as well. Ittavatacha amme sambhatam
punya
sampadam
sampadam
sabbe
sabbe deva anumodantu sabba
sampatti
sampatti
siddhya
siddhya
ittavatacha
Yamtaja Mehi Sampadam
Bhatam punya sampudam
Padam
sabbe
Anumodantu Sabba Sampatti Siddhya Yamtaja Mehi Sampadam Punya Sampadam
sabbe
Sabbe Anumodantu
sabbe sampatti
Sampatti Siddhya Sadhu Sadhu
මාබෝධයටම මේ කුසල අප හැම දෙනාටම හේතු වාසනා වේවා. Thank you for joining everyone.
Sadhu.
Thank you, Bhante.
Everyone,
Bye.
Everyone,